Hi everyone, welcome back to BS Rambles. You clicked the video so you know we are here talking about the top 3 hypercarries in Heroes of the Storm. Let's start by defining what a hypercarry is. A hypercarry is a hero that can pump out so much damage that at times there have been metas developed around pure utility and tankiness that fully rely on a single hero for their source of damage output. A hypercarry is almost always a ranged auto-attack damage hero because they have the ability to do extremely high and consistent damage. The other important factor is that damage is focused on a single target, making them a huge threat often regardless of who the hero is that they are focusing. I love picking these guys because you just feel so impactful as you burn down one target after another. It really feels like you're taking the game into your own hands as a hypercarry. So now, without further ado, let's go over my top 4 picks for the hypercarry slot. At number 4 is a hero that some people might think belongs closer to number 1, and that is Raynor. Raynor is like the Mario of Heroes of the Storm. He's everybody's first character. He's a very simple auto-attack hero with good range and marginal survivability. I like to think of Raynor as a walking turret. He's just going to stand there in the backline and pump out massive auto-attack damage and not do much else. But sometimes that's all we want from our hypercarry, massive damage. One thing that Raynor has over other heroes in the hypercarry slot is that often hypercarries take until late game to have their builds truly come online. Raynor, however, is going to be pumping out hypercarry level damage from the early game all the way through to the late game with no real reliance on massive power spikes provided by talents. Again, he's Mario. His power comes from the simplicity of his playstyle. He's going to stand back and pump out high damage all game, every game. At number 3, I'm going to put one of my personal favorite heroes, and that is Vala. If Raynor is the Mario of Heroes of the Storm, then Vala is the Luigi. She's another quintessential ranged auto-attack hero, but she brings a lot more mobility to the fight than Raynor, using her high movement speed and vault ability to position herself to deal damage to her target while dodging and outranging danger. Vala, however, falls into the opposite category as Raynor in terms of damage spikes. Her auto-attack damage spikes heavily at both level 16, where she gets her percentage health talent, and at level 20, where she has a couple of options that also spike her output in a scary, scary way. She's so dominant in the extra late game that the term hypercarry takes on a whole new meaning. If this were a list of late game hypercarries, Vala would be number 1. But because her hatred mechanic takes a little bit of wind-up time in a fight, and because she is so reliant on the late-game talent spikes for her to start dealing true hypercarry damage, she's going to stay at number 3 on this list. Sometimes fights can be over in an instant, and sometimes games can be won with an early snowball, and in both of those situations, if you're playing Vala, you will probably find yourself regretting not picking a more consistent hero like Raynor, who will deal steady damage throughout both teamfights and the game itself. At number 2, I have someone I'm sure nobody was expecting, and that is Tychus. Tychus doesn't see much play right now, which I think is going to change going forward. And if this was another video on heroes who are secretly OP, you might see Tychus in the number 1 slot instead of number 2. Tychus is unique in that he is the kingpin, the reigning champion, the best in the game by far at shredding tanks. Through his minigun ability, he deals 2.5% of his target's max health as bonus damage every hit for 3 seconds on a 12-second cooldown. Now this is insane already because most percentage health abilities come late in the game. Vala, for example, gets hers at level 16, but they also usually aren't on every single auto-attack hit. Again, using Vala for comparison, hers deals percentage health damage every 3 attacks on the same target. And further still, Tychus attacks 4 times per second, which means that through his percentage health bonus damage alone, he's dealing 10% of his target's max health per second. This means that even from level 1, the enemy frontline's large health pools will be burned away too quickly for countermeasures to even matter. Heroes like Cho'Gall, Diablo, and Muradin who rely on their large health pools as the source of their toughness are hard countered by Tychus. But it's not just tanks that Tychus can burn down like they're nothing. His newly buffed auto-attack damage allows him to burn down any hero that finds himself too close for even a short amount of time. But in that last sentence lies Tychus' only weakness. The enemy has to find themselves too close first because Tychus has the shortest range of any auto-attack hero in the game, which means that to get his ridiculously high damage out, he needs to put himself into more precarious situations than the other hypercarries might do, making him very prone to being burst down. He is the opposite of Raynor, who does consistently good damage from high range. He does stupidly high damage from a low range, and that range disadvantage might be his only weakness, but it's also a huge one. Now for number 1. The best, in my opinion, hypercarry in the entire game, and that is Greymane. Greymane was at the core of the meta last year when the go-to team comp featured 2 supports alongside a hypercarry because of his ability to do consistent and decent ranged auto attack damage, but then to dive in and deal an explosion of burst damage when the time is right as well. His ability to change the pace of damage output from good to ridiculous catches players off guard in even the highest levels of play. Starting in human form, chipping away from range, baiting out defensive cooldowns and probing for weaknesses, and then when that weakness shows, diving into Worgen form and shredding through whoever his target might be. Because so much of his strength is derived from this core mechanic swapping between ranged and melee auto attack damage, his power is high from level 1, and it stays high throughout the entire game, which means that he doesn't rely on those power spikes like Vala does. Something else unique about Greymane that most people don't know is that his stats actually scale harder with his level than other heroes in the game, which means that by late game his base health and damage are both shockingly high, making him surprisingly durable. I put Greymane into a similar category as Tychus, as being much stronger than what he's given credit for. The funny thing here is that before the double support meta got nerfed, everyone recognized that Greymane was the best hypercarry in the game, and then somehow over the last year, we seem to have just forgotten about him. But he is still there, and he is still just as powerful as ever and fully ready to carry games. I can attest to that personally because I just used Greymane as my go-to hypercarry while working my way into Master League. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please do subscribe to my channel. You might have noticed my channel is still very small, so new subscriptions do mean a lot to me. Please let me know what you think my next top list video should be in the comment section, and finally, if you want to go above and beyond to help me grow the channel, you can throw a like on it or share it, which both help more people to see. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a great week.